We have Nick Sirianni, his second year leading the Philadelphia Eagles to the number 1 seed. And then we have Brian Daboll coming to town in Philadelphia after beating the Minnesota Vikings, who now have a negative 10-point differential in their games if you count the playoffs. So thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so like you mentioned it there, I mean, Brian Daboll, first year head coach, probably the coach of the year favorite right now,
Yep.
especially with winning that game. This game is also very weird to me because the Giants are underdogs, 7.5 point underdogs. And I don't know about you, but watching that Vikings game, I understand the Vikings I thought they were fraudulent from the start. I never believed in the Vikings. I never believed in the Giants either. But then I saw Daniel Jones throw for 300 yards and 75 rushing yards. And I'm like, oh shit, this guy is hard to contain. This Eagles team was coming off a lot of injuries. They lost Montez Sweat. They had some injuries on their defense. Jalen Hurts is banged up. He didn't look himself the last week of the season, albeit they were resting starters. So I don't put too much stock into that, but I put enough stock into that. This is a very weird game. And now pretty much every year, there's always a number 1 seed on both sides, the one that has the bye, that loses. And you don't expect what to happen. Whether it be the Chiefs or the Eagles, it's going to be one of those teams. And if I had to put my money on one or the other, I have to put on the Eagles. Because the Giants team, this team's really weird. This isn't a normal team. They can run.
Jaguars aren't weird.
The Jags are weird too. And, and maybe I regret, maybe I picked the wrong team, but I trust the Chiefs more than I trust the Eagles because the Eagles have not proven it.
Right.
So
that's fair.
We got,
good point.
You have a division rival who you see all the time. You have a Daniel Jones who, for most of his career, was horrendous, but went from throwing 30 turnovers a game to 30 turnovers in a season to doesn't turn the ball over, rushes the ball 20 times a game. Him and Saquon having a nice little pairing with them. Their receivers, doesn't even matter that the receivers suck because they pound the ball and their defense makes plays when it matters. This Eagles team, on the other hand, really, if they can contain the run, I feel like, yes, A.J. Brown's going to get his, but if they can keep him out of the end zone, I think this Giants team has a chance to upset the Eagles.
Yeah, they have a chance, and I feel like they definitely have a good shot. And I feel like that 7.5 spread, it should be closer than that, but I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be one of those teams that cranks the intensity up for the playoffs. You have Nick Sirianni, who his first game coaching the Philadelphia Eagles is like, you know what, guys? We're going to watch Rocky, and we're all going to cry at the end of it. We're going to be in these meetings, getting hyped up, motivated. The Eagles, here's the problem. Vikings had a really bad offensive line. Kirk Cousins, that last play, the reason why he wasn't able to lead a drive down the field to potentially get a 2-point conversion and win the game was because his offensive line couldn't hold up. You know his offensive line can hold up? Philadelphia Eagles. You give that older offensive line with Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson and all of those absolute thugs who pose naked for Sports Illustrated time, who are the best offensive line in the NFL to rest. That's where it's going to benefit you in the trenches. So I see the Philadelphia Eagles going to be able to win this game in the trenches. They're going to be able to hold off Kayvon Thibodeau and the pass rush of the Giants defensively. And just, you have Justin Jefferson, sure, but Miles Sanders has proven to be a top 5 running back in the NFL this year. And I feel like Quez Watkins has been a very good complementary running back. And then you go down the list, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith is definitely a better number 2 receiver. And you want to talk about keeping A.J. Brown out of the end zone. How are you going to keep out Devontae Smith on top of that? I just don't think that the Giants have the personnel to keep up with the Eagles. And then, Kirk Cousins can't run like Jalen Hurts has. So you want to talk about Daniel Jones being able to run? Well, I happen to think that the best dual threat quarterback in the NFL right now is Jalen Hurts. He's strong, fast. You've been on him all year. He was your pick for MVP going into it before he sat out a few weeks. You've been talking about, Jalen Hurts is amazing. He's my Kyler Murray of this year. The new young player I'm going to latch onto. And then you have Sirianni, who I think is a better coach at this point than Kevin O'Connell. We'll see Kevin O'Connell going into next year, but I just think the drive and intensity and the veteran experience of Jason Kelce is going to help propel that team because they still have a lot of players from that Super Bowl team. You have hungry players on defense still. You have someone like, Marcus Sweat can get hurt. You still have someone like Ndamukong Suh who can fill in the middle of the trenches. And then you still have the best secondary in the league.
Yeah, throughout that team, their team is definitely better than the Giants. There's no doubt about it. But if we look at that last week's game, I mean, you got the Justin Jeffersons, the Adam Thielens, the TJ Hawkinsons, the Delvin Cooks. On paper, that team had no business beating the Vikings, but they did because this. I don't know what's going on in New York,
Yeah.
and I don't personally even like it, to be honest, because I've never been a big fan of Daniel Jones, and I've never been a big fan of the New York Giants either.
Yeah.
But playoffs are weird, and if there's any season to be freaking weird, it's a season like this.
Yeah.
And this would be probably the biggest upset over the last several years, I would say. Because even the 49ers last year, when they upset the Packers, it's like kind of expected it, especially with the Packers, who are always fraudulent.
Yeah.
But this game, I don't know. Division rivals, it's hard for a team to beat a team 3 times in a season. And each time they definitely took care of business, beat them pretty good. I feel like this is a game that's closer. They know what to expect from them, and they play their best game because they're playing with house money just like the Jags are. So it's like, can we see one of those seeds go out? I would like to see the number of what the record is with number 1 seeds, or just a team on a bye, like what their record looks like the last 20 years, because definitely think there's an upset in order.
Yeah, and you could be right. I get the sentiment and where you're coming from. I just think that the trenches for the Philadelphia Eagles is so much better than the Minnesota Vikings. I feel like you have the best offensive line in the league. Lane Johnson hasn't allowed a sack in 2 years. And then just the difference in the defenses, it's really tough for me to wrap my head around the Philadelphia Eagles defense completely falling apart, because I felt like they weren't too engaged and they knew they were going to get the number 1 seed and wrap it up. They kind of had their eye half on the Washington game versus the Cowboys. So it's like, going to scrape by and win this game, get to the bye, and then we're going to come out and absolutely be the dogs. Nick Sirianni, you want to talk about motivational speakers? It's just the defense is so much more dominant than the Vikings, and the offensive line is going to be able to hold up so much better. And then, yeah, I love Daniel Jones. I love Saquon Barkley, but I feel like Jalen Hurts just on a different level this season. Daniel Jones rushing, anything he can do, Jalen Hurts can do better. Any throw Daniel Jones can make, Jalen Hurts can do better. And oh yeah, A.J. Brown, you don't need to get him too much space. He can just break the game open on a slant. Devontae Smith, one of the fastest young wide receivers, definitely bounced back from maybe kind of a down rookie year, some people would say, than Dallas Goedert. So I feel like this Eagles team, a lot more speed on offense, a lot more explosive. And then in the trenches, I feel like it's not even a competition.